Well, Thomas is on the move, beginning to position himself. He's got one extra unit, just came on the map, trying to join him en route. And moved Rosecrans up here. We're going to deliver some delayed orders for the right wing to launch an attack as well. I'm going to try, because I've got I've got a kind of a line of sight running here barely. I think I can say, hey, like I said, I think it's at least 20 hexes vision. It may be unlimited, but with the larger maps, that wouldn't make any sense. So anyway, we've got a clear line to these guys and can conceivably see them. So I can use them as kind of a trigger. What I'm going to do is say, hey, once they get moving, launch an attack. That means I reasonably can't roll for acceptance until they might possibly get moving. But that's the kind of triggering that allows you to kind of cheat so that you end up with coordinated actions. If you're not playing with the procrastination rule, there's no problem at all. If you're playing with it, it feels a little cheap, to tell you the truth. But I don't know what else to do. You know, I want to put that delay in there, but I have no reason to know that to know anything about when this order is going to actually be accomplished. And there's no real reasonable way to say, yeah, he's going to assume it'll take him an hour to get moving and to add an hour to the delay. You could fake things like that, but yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense. You could have coordinated on-time attacks. That's, you know, I don't think trying to make the game prevent that completely is particularly reasonable. I think allowing that latitude works well. Anyway, one neat thing, not that anything's happening, is during these turns when nothing is happening and there's no more stragglers to recover, the turns go by like that. Of course, I'm not playing terribly much. I'm playing a video game in between turns that I can kind of get through this and enjoy that in a way that works well for me at this point in my time. We are at the beginning of the 10:30 turn, and I'm beginning to realize WCAV's orders no longer really apply. I'll go into that in a moment. We got the 1-3 center wing moving into position here. We got some cav coming on the board. This is the last of the Union reinforcements. No, they got another one way back at 4 p.m. This is coming up. It's going to just attach to the headquarters for the Army, and I don't know what to do with it, really. These kind of things are good to send off on little special missions like WCAV is on, but attaching them to a unit, unless it's just screening the end of the unit, like that cav over there is generally kind of a bad idea. So I'll keep it around and see if I can think of any good use for it. Now, going to this WCAV here, his orders are defend the left flank of P Corps and block advance down Franklin Road. Carb attached. I'm assuming that means Cav battery there attached. Clearly those two orders cannot be combined. So I'm saying he's kind of in a state of no orders now. PCAV has to defend the right flank of the Army. Well, that's going to be way out here, so I've got to get him moving too. He's no longer following the orders he's been given. I don't really care what I'm doing with him, just so he's not in the midst of the fighting. Now, this was kind of a dangerous place where he might be in the midst of the fighting, but he actually is also holding a centerpiece between the two corps. Kind of a shame that he's not going to be there, but, well, I got to follow the orders that I have written. I see this Confederate cav taking its licking, basically. He's got to figure out something to do that's still within his orders. He can receive fire for one more round. He won't be getting any orders. Then he has to start doing emergency withdrawals. and he's just going to be backing his way up. But he did do something nice. He subjected some small arms fire to the center core, which means the Union is now going to have to start rolling for attack stoppage, and they might not make it to where they're actually wanting to go and be engaged. Of course, Thomas has a pretty decent chance of getting initiative and reinitiating his orders, as it were. Now the WCAF's got problems because they've been sticking around for 2 rounds of fire combat at close I don't know. I'm not sure what the term is anymore. It's not close combat, but small arms firing range. And they've got artillery with them. They've got to pack up and leave because they're taking a defense failure, essentially, for not having orders. Nothing else really moving anywhere along the lines of anything. They did do some significant difficulty that they imposed on the center wing they're trying to advance. We'll see if it ends up breaking them. I think I forgot to roll this time. They're fine. They don't have a wreck division, do they? Yes. Yeah, they do. They're still okay because Thomas is a pretty good leader, but they've got 1 out of 2, and Rousseau's not in great shape either. He's 1 unit away. This is a unit that took a lot of damage in that initial fighting. We're nearly halfway through the second day. Nothing much has happened, obviously. It may well be that I actually don't want to commit the assault on this day just because I'm not in position. But, I've got the wheels in motion, so we'll see what happens. I'm realizing I kind of screwed things up here. These Confederates, if they were without orders, should have pulled back their commander. I didn't realize he's on the board. But they had sort of this weird semi-state of orders. Right now I'm going to pull them back. They've done what they're supposed to do. Defend the road isn't really a reasonable option as far as I'm concerned. What it should be is exactly what they did. I almost feel like I'd like to come up with a term for that. Hey, defend and fall back a lot. Just try to put the firing, because that little small arms fire ended up getting the center wing a failure. And actually, so I've got a problem because McCook's orders were distorted. I wanted to go talk to him, but now I've got to go talk to Thomas, and I'm there, and send him forward. Meanwhile, I should be rolling Crittenden, and he's got his orders, so he should be moving forward. Suppose I can slowly deploy him forward. I forgot he's got pending orders. His orders, actually, he's not allowed to move yet. He was just doing orders for the noon turn. So he actually wasn't allowed to move, which means he did the right thing by not moving. It's just I forgot to make the roll for him. But yeah, McCook distorted his orders in his discussion, which meant that I had to go back, and I would have had to go forward and talk to him. Not sure why I didn't place myself there last turn, but I didn't, and now I'm having a little chit-chat with Thomas, which means it's going to take a while for McCook to get into place. And meanwhile, my left wing under who's there, Crittenden, something like that, is heading, they're going to start steaming over. On time. Well, it kind of makes sense to go here and say, yo, we gotta, you gotta move forward, man. You're part of this plan, right? And then not notice that McCook has decided to just ignore his orders. I love when CWB kind of starts breaking down with the orders like that. There's one reason why not being aware of the scenario is actually ultimately cool. This cav unit just came streaming in from here with orders to rejoin its division. It marches up to about here, but swings through the command place. That throws an emergency retreat on the center wing, and then swings over here. Meanwhile, this guy's got to pull back, but little events like that, you know, that would never happen in a game where people are paying attention, looking at the order of arrival and what's coming in where. You'd station something here, you'd move it up with the other units, whatever. But he was able to actually swing through it without violating his orders because there was nothing to attack, so he just raided it. And I kind of like it. I don't know. Some people, normally in an opposed game, you would be like, whoa, wait, no, come on. You know? But by not really knowing what's going on, you can, and this is one of the factors that I hope for with kind of the event-driven games, but too often the victory conditions are based on knowing the events, and the same goes with CDGs, which are a form of event-driven games, is that you hope something really shocking will happen that you're totally unprepared for, and it'll cause something cool like this. It doesn't happen very often in a game with pre-programmed arrivals and all this kind of stuff, because usually someone's aware. Well, this time I wasn't, and I'm perfectly willing to give this kind of unawareness a chance to play out, especially since I was kind of getting bored with what was going on, even though they were moving. And the extent of the chaos back here, Rosecrans has decided to allow Thomas to fall back. He knows that these orders are distorted and he has to go repeat them. He wants to stop this thing from taking its orders, so he's charging on its way. I've only moved maybe 2/3 of the distance with most of my units, mainly building up a line. Again, as far as I'm concerned, within the realm of the orders that I had. If I had moved 1 hex forward, that would be pushing things as far as I'm concerned. But I think deploying like this is not outside the realm of what I had intended for the orders. I didn't have to just swing and march forward or let my lead elements hit early. I want to set up an actual formation that can hit. As we slide into the 1 p.m. turn, Crittenden has struck the Confederate forces. At the same time, Rosecrans shows up and says, whoa, let's chill on this. Maybe tomorrow, right? Well, it's too late. We're already starting, but we can call it back. You can see there were some good shots. Those red markers indicate low ammo, which means a high roll. Just the way the system works. We got a routed Union unit and some significant casualties over there on both sides. Meanwhile, Thomas, his forces are pulling back. Basically, with 2/3 of my wings, not necessarily 2/3 of my force. My main force is over here, though, so it might not be too far from that. Not going into battle in the near future, I really do want to get these back, and I another day I can try. Unfortunately, the damage, well, it comes to both people. Polk's units are getting kind of hammered here too. See, this is it's the WPs that are getting hit up here, and you can see we got a wreck over there, but over here on the left, we picked up another wreck. I think this one got wrecked this time. That's the routed unit. So, yeah, mixed effects of failed attack. Well, as we finish the 1 p.m. turn, we see that it is pointless to launch attacks when armies are in this condition. The third day, January 2nd, the 2 days after the main battle, you got a similar result, to tell you the truth, except there was a fairly fresh unit with Breckinridge. There's nothing fresh on the field for either side. The right corps, or the right wing, is fairly fresh. That is the best that I've got. I could throw that in and presumably take some ground with it. But the left wing here, even without Rosecrans trying to make any kind of headway there, he was going in to give orders against, well, the Corps failed in its attack stoppage. Not before the Confederates got another shot into them and routed a couple of units, which actually recovered quite quickly. Well, one of them was already routed. But both sides are pretty shaken and shattered. There's not a lot that's going to go well from this. I've got one good wing for the Union, this right wing. I could conceivably use this to try to crush something on the Confederates. But there's always a somewhat of a defensive advantage in this game. Just simply the fact that the attacker has to move forward, you get to shoot at him, you could fall back a hex, as long as you're not protecting guns. If you're protecting guns, you get the advantage of the guns firing close in. I really don't see much gain here. I'm going to keep thinking about whether or not I want to call it. But my instincts were, you can't keep fighting after the armies have fought one good battle. And that's really kind of where we are. There's nothing the Confederates have that they could throw into battle here. Chatham's Corps, or Chatham's division, is not so bad off. Withers is in pretty bad shape here. He's going to start collapsing. He's got 3 units that are close to wrecked, one of which he actually is. Over here, for the Union, well, that right wing is not too bad off. They've got several boxes. They've got one good attack available in them. And that's kind of that's what Rosecrans has to decide. Can I use them for something? Thomas is back here trying to rally his forces. But that center wing is pretty badly hosed. This is all out of play. It's all optional. So all I've got is this stuff. I've already won the battle. Do I press harder? Most generals in this period would not. Rosecrans is not Grant. Although when I was playing, I don't remember what the game is. It's the campaign from the COA games. Same system as Mississippi Fortress. Lee takes command. I don't remember what it's called. It has the big suck geek in it, though. Anyway, it's got Rosecrans in command, so it's this campaign basically, or the immediately preceding one. And I got accused of being Rosecrans because I didn't do anything clever. I just steamrolled and kept pushing and kept pushing. And it actually was working pretty well, although the butcher's bill was kind of high. But the historical Rosecrans did not really push his army very hard. He engaged with these sweeping maneuvers when they didn't do what he expected them to do. He held off. I've more or less come to the conclusion that I'm not going to launch another attack. Yes, I could recover. I could try to put the right wing back over here on the right. Use the center wing, which is kind of weak, to sit in the more defensive position here, because the thought of trying to attack across the river is just painful. But, this battle has been won by the Union. And we'll count the points and see what that comes up as. But I don't see a point to continuing on here. I've gone, a whole day here with almost nothing happening. And it's probably not my time, more than a day my time, because, well, more than a day in terms of, because I'm dragging my feet because I know nothing's going to happen. Anyway, I'll count my points and see what we come. Nobody's getting any points for wrecked formations because it's at the core level that they have to be wrecked. And none of the units were wrecked at the core level. Casualties were close. The Union lost 103, which is 10,300, to 106, 10,600 for the Confederates. The Confederates can ill afford that, though, so that's an 8-point difference for them. The problem is the terrain bonus. The Union got 12 points and the Confederates got nothing. Basically, the Union's holding this territory. As long as the Union holds it, they're going to win. So they can, and a fairly major victory. And there's just no way I can see the Confederates taking it from them with the right wing positioned in the center here. The center wing will push forward and probably hold this kind of position. The force just isn't there. The Confederates do not have the power to push the Union back now that they're behind the river. There's not much I can see about what I can do about that. And that ends up being, a 15-point difference, which over here ends up a Union major. I don't think the Union's willing to bloody themselves further in this engagement in the unlikely attempt to try to gain a bigger victory. Because here's the problem. Let's say I do swing around and make an attack. Let's say it fails, okay? Because I'm not going to get much out of it. If it does fail, there's the possibility that the Confederates could actually take the terrain bonus that the Union's already got. And that's some of the decision why the Union's not going to press their attack. And the Confederates don't want to press their attack for the simple reason that they can't. They're too weak. They had their best chance early in the game, preferably before this right wing shows up. Defeat in detail of the smaller force, and then hopefully be able to hold the territory against the fresh right wing that would be coming into play. That didn't play out that way. It's not the historical situation. The historical situation actually has the right wing getting slammed by the Confederates, and only the right wing really getting hurt badly. But I'm going to look up what the historical casualties were for this. But around 20,000 sounds like a fairly hefty battle. Probably less than actually happened. And then I'll come back and talk a little bit about it from a review type of standpoint. What we're seeing is probably actually pretty close to in line with what happened on the first day in terms of casualties, the first day being the 31st in the historical battle. Sporadic fighting through the first, very, very light, which we're not seeing here on the second real day of the battle. And then one big charge by Breckinridge on the third day. I just can't justify the attacks, though. So, pushing the troops further on over those last couple of days when they're this weakened, yes, historically it happened. And it's funny because most games it's the opposite, right? The players push their troops harder. We actually probably got about historical losses on that first day. But I'm looking at, you look at what happened here, and that got driven back right away. That's the problem. Anything except the right wing is going to get smashed back. And I just don't see one wing being able to either cut through here, or that I'm willing to take the risk of moving that wing and perhaps giving up the entirety of the field. It just feels like this is the Union's unwilling to advance, and the Confederates are in no position to attack the primary position that the Union has. Now, they could make an attack here, but again, that may be causing a loss of the entire field, the rest of the points, creating the decisive victory rather than just the major victory. And again, well, not decisive, they call it massive. That sounds even worse. Major sounds pretty decisive to me, and the point-wise, etc. The casualties don't really tell it, but winning the field the way they did, it definitely will cut off any Confederate attempts to go further here into Tennessee. What about the game itself? So, obviously, I love the CWB. Out of the ones I've played on camera, well, other than the 7 days, which I haven't gotten a lot of chance, but I've played this one a lot. I like this one. It's not Thunder, you know. Thunder's the game that hooked me in the series completely. This tends to be decided in one day, as it was historically, really. I mean, Bragg continuing the attack was kind of foolishness in some ways, where he could have held a defensive position and probably mitigated his losses. The one real complaint that I have, the only complaint I have about this, I haven't played the historical scenario, and I've seen some grumping about maybe it doesn't work quite right. Well, again, you wouldn't be able to recreate that situation without the woods, without the hidden movement rules in the base game, and that's okay. The big gripe that I have, though, is the limited amount of map above the river. Now, you need the map below the river, to the west of the river, because for the historical scenario, you do need an attack through here. It just feels like I wish I had an extra, half map on the top. 1.5 maps would work fine for this. I know there's the desire, there always was the desire of making smaller CWB battles, and this one works. It's a big battle to say do at the regimental level, but it's just a good size in a way that, say, Perryville is too small for my taste. It gives you a lot of room for maneuvering from that initial position, but once the Confederates are behind the river, I feel like the Union needs the right to kind of threaten their rear that they just don't have. And that's the only complaint I have about it. But for handling, first of all, I like there being room to maneuver, and I like there being time to maneuver. Too many of these, your Shiloh and Antietam. Shiloh's got time, but there's the specifics of the condition of the battle make it so that there really isn't any maneuvering there. Obviously, Antietam just doesn't have the time for the maneuvers. This one manages to do a good job of providing you with. Perryville gives you half a day. This one gives you 4 damn days to do what you want with, and that's just really beautiful to me. Obviously you could play some of the others with longer time periods and say, well, look, the battle happens when the battle happens, right? Let's not just, why force the battle to happen on this day? Why not give me some maneuvering time and I got space on the map or whatever? And that would be a reasonable decision here. But this one, see, I don't remember. I haven't. Champion Hill, I remember feeling kind of the same as I do about this, which is mostly positive. We'll see when I get to it. But again, not the magic that Gettysburg is for me. And one that was really, really cool, but kind of flawed in some ways, is Embrace an Angry Wind. That's a really weird game, and you'll see some of that. The others I haven't really played. Bloody Road South, Barren Victory. I have not gotten a chance to shoot those suckers off yet and strike them a blow, which I probably shouldn't have even picked up. But I like this series. I don't know whether or not I'm going to even play that one. I probably should. Why'd I buy it if I didn't? I mean, let's see. Oh no, this is a real. No, this is. Yeah. It's just so late in the war. Yeah. But I feel again that this is going to be heavily what if to make the scenario good. Same kind of situation as Perryville was. And we'll see. I'm not sure how the, the North Anna River. I'm not sure how exciting a battle that is. Maneuver-wise, it may be. But I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, this one was fun. I don't know how far I'm going to go in these before I kind of peter out. Because these are a little bit, you know, bigger than, say, doing this whole series is a bigger deal than, say, doing a box or 2 boxes out of musket and pike or something like that. And, you know, I'll get back to them. I'll finish them off eventually. It's just, I can't guarantee I'm going to go the whole